So I take the first blade, smooth side towards the back, I put it all the way back in the gap, in the clamp, put it in the middle of the gap, and clamp it down. I take this side, put it all the way to the back of the clamp, butt it up to the other one in the middle of the gap, and clamp it down. If you come and look, come on, you come and look in here. You'll see that they're clamped right between the two clamps, all the way in the back, butted up against each other, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's what we have so far. Now, through the magic of welding, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the weld selector to a medium wide blade. That's what I have, medium. I'll call that medium. And what's going to happen is when I push down on this red handle, remember I moved the handle up and down, it moved the clamps back and forth. When I push down on the handle, it's going to force the clamps together while a current runs through there and welds them. Sparks will fly, metal will melt, and it'll smash them together, and they'll be welded together. Now, when I do that, I have to be careful. See, there's a W button here, that means weld. When I do that, I have to be careful because if I let up on this lever, then I'm going to pull the clamps back apart, and if the weld isn't set, it'll pull the weld apart. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push down on this red lever, I'm going to hold the red lever down, and then I'm going to loosen one of these clamps so when I pick the lever back up, the clamp can move away, but it won't pull the metal away. Follow all that? Okay, watch what happens. I'm going to push this down on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. There's the weld. It's welded. I'm holding the clamp down, and now I just knock these clamps and loosen them up. And now I can peel this back up to the A. That stands for anneal, because I've welded it, and now I need to anneal it. And if I look at this and pull it out, I can see that it's welded together. Okay? There is the blade welded together. Okay? Heavy current, a lot of force, boom, it's welded. Okay? Now, I only take it out to show it to you. I normally wouldn't take it out. Remember, it's in the back of the clamps. I'm going to move it to the front of the clamps, and I'm going to loosely tighten the clamps back together when it's in the A position. The clamps are far apart. I'm going to reclamp the blade, and now I'm going to push the annealing button. The annealing button is down here. It even says annealing, etching. Oh, it just says annealing, okay? When I push the annealing button, it's going to send a current through there, and it's going to heat that baby up. It's going to get red hot, and if I cool it down slowly, it's going to anneal it, which means it's going to be more ductile than if I heat it up really hot and then quench it in a water bath. It'll be tempered. It'll be pretty brittle. Okay, I want to anneal it to make it soft because it's going to undergo a lot of loading here. So I'm going to make sure it's centered. It's not quite centered.
It's brittle. After welding, it's brittle enough right now that if you went like that, it would break.
It would snap. Yeah. And
so does it matter where you have the clamp separation?
Yes, up here on the A. There's an A at the top, a W in the bottom for welding, and an A on the top for annealing. So I raise it all the way up. I move the clamps as far apart as they will go. I center the weld back in there, in the front of the clamps. And then there's a annealing selector over here that is 1/16 to a half and 5/8 to 1. Now if I put it to 1/16 to a half, and this is a half-inch blade, it's going to take, that's at the limit of its range there. It's going to take forever to heat up. I never want to wait that long. So I always say, oh, that's juicy. So I go up to the wider thing. Now when I push the annealing button, you see it's going to turn red, and I want it to cool down slowly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that button in until it turns nice cherry red, and then I'm going to pulse it. I'm going to let off the button, pulse it on, off, on, off, on, off, on, right? Just like, remember you were, where did we deal with this? We were talking about the microwave the other day. What else were we talking about that?
Brazing?
Yeah, brazing. We were talking about cooling down. Okay, so here we go. See if you can watch this. If you get around, you can see it go. But here we go. We're going to go. There it is. It's smoking. Oh, it's turning red. There it's red, and I'm going to pulse it. Pulse, 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 pulse. There it is. Now the blade is annealed. Whoop. Careful there. And now it's not as brittle as it was. So now I've got a welded blade and an annealed blade, and the last thing I need to do is knock off that weld that's too big. So I'm going to do that on the grinding wheel. And the grinding wheel is open the top, and you can't see this, but it's also open on the bottom. So I'm going to grind the top and the bottom. And I've got a gauge over here, a thickness gauge, right here, that I can put the blade through here and make sure it's the thickness it should be. So down here like this, I'm going to turn this on. There it is. I'm going to flatten this out, maybe even make it convex like that. Grind the blade off. I'm looking. I'm going to do this side. Come on. I'm just grinding off the weld, okay? I don't want to grind off anything else. Back and forth, in and out, okay? So I'm hurrying, so let me tell you what happens when you hurry. When you hurry, you get some of the blade on either side. When you hurry, you don't get all the weld, or you hit it over here. I'm hurrying, and I shouldn't do that, okay? So you do that on the outside. You also do it on the inside there, and when you're done, you have a blade that's all set to go, okay? One last thing. You might find when you're all done welding that you welded it inside out. Sometimes that happens, okay? It's not a Mobius strip, so at least it's not that bad. But if it's welded inside out, then what you do is you take the blade like this, and you just turn it over. And as you turn it over, it pops, and now it's the right way. Now, in fact, it is inside out. If I put this blade on here, it'd be cutting backwards. So I'll turn this back around. And that's how you make blades. And I already showed you to take this blade and roll it up. You just squeeze it here, twist it like this, down it comes, and you're good to go. To open it back up, I never have figured out how to open it back up, so I usually just sort of cautiously open it back up like that. Make sure you open it right side out, not inside out, and you're set to go on there. Okay?